सुरासुरा सेवित पाद पंकजा करे विराजत कमनीय पुस्तका विधेश्च पत्नी कमलासन प्रिया सरस्वती नृत्यतु वाचि मे सदा येन धौता गिरः पुंसां विमलैः शब्दवारिभिः तमश्चाज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनीं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। So my humble pranams to all the learned participants here. And what I recited just now was a Mangalacharan. So in one of the texts, which is called as Paribhashendu Shekhar, the Mangalacharan says Balanam Sukhabodhaya. So we are all Bala, and as far as this huge area of language, bhasha that I'm going to talk today, I'm really a Bala. And I'll try my best to give you a perspective of what our predecessors have done, how they have thought about language, क्या उन्होंने सोचा है, क्या उनका अप्रोच है, उसके बारे में कुछ ना कुछ मैं आपको बताने की कोशिश करूंगा। ये जो हमारी भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा है वो आचार्यों की परंपरा है। मातृदेवो भव, पितृदेवो भव, आचार्य देवो भव। तो आचार्यों की जो परंपरा है, ट्रेडिशन ऑफ आचार्य, इज द ट्रेडिशन ऑफ आचरण। It is the tradition of acharan. It is the tradition of introspection. It is the tradition of imbibing knowledge rather than preaching. तो ये आचार की परंपरा है, और जब आचार आता है तो उसका प्रचार भी ऑटोमेटिक हो जाता है ना। यद्यद आचरति श्रेष्ठः तत्तदेव इतरो जना। So this is the tradition of achara. This is the tradition of introspection. This is the tradition of practice rather than promotion. And the entire tradition has always been looking upwards towards the knowledge. And then even in Manusmriti, you must have heard or you may listen to it later on. So स्वम स्वम चरित्रम शिक्षेरन पृथिव्याम सर्व मानवाः यथा यथा श्रेष्ठ, जैसे जैसे आचरण करता है उस तरह से। तो हमारे आचार्य निरंतर ज्ञान की ओर देखते रहे हैं और बाकी की चीजें फॉलो होती रही। So one thing that I feel after that presentation that I saw was that there is not much need to worry about ICAS. There is more need to worry about how much of ICAS, Indian knowledge systems, Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, Bharatiyata, we can imbibe in our own selves. The things will follow. So, taking 2-3 points, I'll come to my topic of Bhasha. So, I would like to have some thoughts in one sentence. Today, you don't even get 3 minutes. Just in one sentence, you have to say what we can do. Small things with which we can bring that Indian tradition. So we all become the icons, the ambassadors of Indian tradition through our own behavior. What are those things? Can we start using tithis? Tithi. Like what is the tithi of today? That is our Indian calendar. Can we start following it somewhere? Can we start celebrating birthdays on tithi? We celebrate Diwali and other things as per tithi, isn't it? Can we do that? So now another point I am coming to is how much emphasis, importance do we give to our own languages? How much do we think of our own language? जो भी आपकी मातृभाषा है, हिंदी है या तमिल है या कन्नड़ है, how much do we think of those languages? How much do we read of those languages? हम कितना पढ़ते हैं उन भाषाओं को? मेरी मातृभाषा कच्ची है, तो मैं कितना कच्ची में कम्युनिकेट करता हूँ, कितना मैं कच्ची पढ़ता हूँ? Do I feel proud when I speak my own language? So that is one thing that we have to think about. So these are our own things. So rather than rejecting something, I am telling about sticking to our own things more. उसमें से बहुत सारा विजडम है। आपकी मातृभाषा में बहुत सारी अच्छी बातें आप सब जानते हैं वो क्या है। तो हमने उनको कितना पढ़ा, कितना समझा, हमने हमारे हमारे गाँवों को कितना समझा, हमारे गाँवों को कितना समझा हमने, वहाँ के लोगों की मानसिकता को कितना समझा। और मैं 2 छोटे से प्रसंग कहकर मेरे मुद्दे पर आता हूँ। मेरा एक बार मैं ईरान जाना हुआ था मेरा, आई हैड बीन टू ईरान। So there I realized that there was this institute, I had gone through the embassy, ICSSR में से, और जो इंस्टीट्यूट साथ में कोलैबोरेटिंग इंस्टीट्यूट वाज some humanities institute, big institute, and the vice chancellor of that institute had come there, and we were all sitting, and I was just wondering क्या होगा, अब ये क्या सुनेंगे. So there was a person who was distributing small kits, कान में डालने की kit थी. I took it. So he said, if you don't understand Persian, you please take this kit. So I took it, I put it in my ear. And then even the best of learned people, the biggest academicians there, they were speaking in their own Persian language. And there was a translator who was translating everything to us. So that is one thing. Their medicine, engineering, and all technical subjects are taught in their own language. That is, it is not impossible. Today, conceiving of a world which runs completely on our own languages is quite difficult. This is something that is written in the national education policy, but still bringing it into action is a huge task, huge task. And there are so many impediments, but that is not impossible. You have to think about it. Secondly, then there was an Iranian, I was working in a traditional Sanskrit university prior to here, so in Saurashtra. And then there a student from Iran had come to learn Sanskrit. And I just happened to ask him, so some police verification and all those things were to be done. So I asked him, what is your birthday? And he took about 5-6 minutes to think over it. And then he said, oh, December 31st hai. He was able to speak a little bit of Hindi. Why did he take so much time? Because he thought in his own calendar. कि मेरा ये है तो 50, जैसे कि अभी विक्रम संवत है, तो जो ये इंग्लिश कैलेंडर है वो 58 इयर्स पीछे है. You can convert it. There are tools available online also which can convert your Shaka Samvat or Vikram Samvat into. So he took that time, and I was very happy. I gave him that time. Please think. He thought in his own. So, and Indian, you will listen to it, or you must have already heard about the calendrical calculations and Kala Ganana and how scientific it is in Indian tradition. So it is about sticking to it. In our tradition, it is about Shraddha and Medha. So what comes first is Shraddha, and what comes second is Medha. So even if you are intelligent enough, it doesn't work unless you have Shraddha. So, and that indeed has to be there. That has to be there. If we ever dream to progress as a civilization, as a culture, it has to be there. Because that is our own. As I was telling you, whether IKS is really great or not is different, but it is ours. And that is why it is better that we embrace it. It is ours. So it is not about rejecting other things, but it is about embracing your own. Swadharme nidhanam shreya, paradharmo bhayava. These are great lines from Bhagavad Gita. Very. So he says that Shreyan swadharmo viguna, paradharmat swanushtita. If your swadharma is not so good, still you better adhere to it. श्रेयान स्वधर्मो विगुणा, विगतः गुणा, जिसमें ज्यादा गुण नहीं है, ऐसा ही है आपका, तो भी परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठिता. परधर्म को बहुत अच्छे तरह से अनुष्ठान करने से, उसको फॉलो करने से भी अच्छा है कि आप अपने खुद के धर्म को, वो जैसा भी है, उसको चलाइए. एंड दैट इज हाउ स्वधर्म निरत सिद्धिम, ऐसे लिखा है उसमें, यथा विंदति तच्छृणु एंड सो ऑन. सो वी हैव टू रियलाइज दैट, एंड इट इज अ प्रोग्रेसिव रियलाइजेशन. ऐसा नहीं कि in one day everything comes into practice. In one day you realize everything. But it is a process where you go on realizing, and it is a process where you go on bringing things into your own practice. And other things will follow. Other things will follow. So now, coming to Bhasha and coming to Indian languages, a very nice thing is that the topic of today's presentation is Bhasha and not Sanskrit. So Bhasha covers everything, all the bhashas, all the languages that we speak. And then it of course also covers Sanskrit. And learning Sanskrit can help us in two ways. Point number one, it can help us in understanding our own mother tongues in a better way, because lot of what we speak in our mother tongues has percolated into those languages through Sanskrit. We already know that. So if you understand Sanskrit, you understand our own languages in better. So, how much of our own matrubhashas, our own words do we understand? Our own vocabulary do we understand? There are Hindi speakers here, right? Okay. Who are the Hindi speakers here? One or two? Yeah, this is, madam is also Hindi speaker. You are also in, sir. So, ये जो रस्व दीर्घ होता है ना हिंदी में, रस्व दीर्घ, इसमें एक बहुत बड़ा जंजाल है रस्व और दीर्घ में, है ना? रस्व इकार, रस्व उकार, दीर्घ इकार, दीर्घ उकार, and everybody, including the students in the school, even the teachers, are all confused. कहाँ कौन सा आएगा, है ना? So if I pronounce these two words, kavi and nadi, do you listen to any difference? Forget about the way they are written. Kavi, nadi. Now you have to focus on that E, the last E. Kavi, nadi. Sounds the same, doesn't it? Sounds the same. But when you write it, the E has to be small in kavi, I mean, ऐसे, और नदी में दीर्घ हो. वही ई जो मराठी में जाता है तो कवि का ई दीर्घ हो जाता है, कवि ऐसे लिखते हैं. What is that? कैसे होता है? The reason is that phonetically speaking, from the way it is pronounced, Hindi में there are two e's, and at times if you see, like if I pronounce the word neeti, you'll actually figure out that difference. Neeti. See, there are two e's. Neeti. And you can actually figure out that the E after na is long and the E after the is short, isn't it? Neeti, Reeti, Sthiti. It is not Sthiti. Then Sthiti is very clear that both the E's are short. लेकिन कवि का ही क्यों दीर्घ है? इसका रस्व क्यों है? बोलते समय तो हम कवि बोलते हैं, है ना? बांग्ला में कैसे लिखते हैं? छोटा लिखते हैं कि बड़ा लिखते हैं? छोटा लिखते हैं. बोलते समय कैसे बोलेंगे? बांग्ला स्पीकर्स, प्रभु बोलिए, कोबी. और नदी कैसे बोलेंगे? देखिए उसमें कोबी, नदी, ऐसे तो नहीं हो रहा है, समान है. तो ये क्यों छोटा है? वो इसीलिए छोटा है, वो सच में छोटा नहीं है हिंदी में, वो बड़ा ही है. लेकिन हम जो आए हैं वो संस्कृत करते करते आए हैं, और संस्कृत में वो रस्व कवि ही ऐसे है वहां, और हिंदी में है, संस्कृत में नदी है, नदी. तो इसलिए हमारी नदी दीर्घ ही रह गई और कवि जो है वो रस्व ही रह गया. एंड वी कीप कंफ्यूजिंग आवर स्टूडेंट्स ऑल्सो. देखो यार छोटा लिखना है, नहीं लिखोगे तो लाल मार्क आएगा उसको. लेकिन वो सुना ही नहीं दे रहा है छोटा, फिर भी वो छोटा लिखा जा रहा है. क्यों? इसका जवाब आपको तब तक नहीं मिलेगा जब तक संस्कृत समझ में नहीं आएगी, unless you know the roots. So there are so many things in all Indian languages that you can figure out like this. You can understand the differences. Languages are quite complex things. एक काम करेंगे, यहाँ जितने हिंदी बोलने वाले लोग हैं सभी को हम पूछेंगे कि आप उच्चारण करिए, क्योंकि वो जो बोलते हैं वही सत्य है, जो आप लिखते हैं और पढ़ाते हैं वो सत्य नहीं है.
बोलने वालों से हेमचंद्र शब्दानुशासन के अनुकरण की अपेक्षा आप नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि समाज में सभी तरह के लोग.
मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि वो दीर्घ है.
दो पंक्तियां बोलूंगी. मैं वाल्मीकि कवि का वंशज, मैं कालिदास का कर कंकण, मैं वरदाई का वरद पुत्र, मैं कवि भूषण का कुलभूषण. नॉट कवि.
रस्व है क्योंकि वो समास में आ रहा है, कवि भूषण में आ रहा है. जहां अंत में कवि आता है ऐसा शब्द बताइए मुझे और उच्चारण करके बताइए.
सर अब मेरा उच्चारण हमेशा कवि ही रहता है, और लेखन में भी और उच्चारण में भी कवि. सर जो संस्कृत से प्रवाह हुआ है, वैदिक संस्कृत और लौकिक संस्कृत में भी भेद है, और जैसे जैसे समय बदलता है आप सबको अनुशासन और नियमों में एक वृहद समूह को बांध नहीं पाते, तो धीरे धीरे भाषा प्रवाह लेती है. और ये प्रवृत्ति केवल भारतीय भाषाओं में देखने को नहीं आती है. अगर अंग्रेजी का भी इतिहास पढ़ें तो ये प्रवृत्ति देखने में आती है. अंग्रेजी भी एक जनजातीय भाषा है और रही है, कहना नहीं चाहिए, अब तो नहीं है, रही है. और जो स्थिति वर्तमान समय में भारतीय भाषाओं की है, यह स्थिति एक समय में अंग्रेजी की फ्रेंच के सामने रही. फ्रेंच कुलीन वर्ग की भाषा मानी जाती थी। तो समाज जिसे कुलीन वर्ग की भाषा समझता है, उसका अनुसरण करने का चाहे अनचाहे प्रयास करता है। फिर भी हर किसी को, ये मनुष्य है, ये विज्ञान की प्रयोगशाला की विषय वस्तु नहीं है कि जिस पर एक नियम लगाया जा सके। तो इसलिए आप एक वृहद समूह को नियम में बांध नहीं सकते। तो लोग हैं, जैसा चाहते हैं वैसा बोलते हैं और भाषा प्रवाह लेती है। और यही कारण है कि हर 100-200 साल बाद एक नई भाषा जन्मी है। उसे हम साहित्य का प्रवाह कह सकते हैं, मानव जाति के विचारधारा का प्रवाह कह सकते हैं, मनुष्य के अस्तित्व का प्रवाह कह सकते हैं, संस्कृति का प्रतिनिधित्व करने की धारा कह सकते हैं। तो जो भाषा है वो अनुकरण से सीखी अवश्य जाती है, लेकिन जीवन भर हम किसी का अनुकरण नहीं करते। इसीलिए हर व्यक्ति की भाषा एक जैसी होने के बाद भी अलग अलग होती है। और यही कारण है कि संस्कृत से आज हम इन भाषाओं पर खड़े हैं।
व्याकरण का नियमों से भाषा को बांध नहीं सकते हैं, ये सच्चाई है। और ये महाभाष्यकार पतंजलि भी माना था। महाभाष्यकार अपना व्याकरण का, महाभाष्य का पहले अश्वसारण्यक में लिखा था, लोकतः अर्थ प्रयुक्ते शब्द प्रयोगे शास्त्रेण धर्म नियम। लोक में जैसा जैसा जिन अर्थों में शब्दों का प्रयोग है, उनको हमने शास्त्र से नियम बांध करके भाषा में एक स्थिरता, एक नियमबद्धता लाने की कोशिश किया। इसलिए पाणिनि के बाद, पाणिनि से पहले कम से कम 30-50 वैयाकरण थे जो स्वतंत्र व्याकरण ग्रंथ लिखे हैं, लेकिन पाणिनि का व्याकरण इतना संक्षिप्त है, इतना सारगर्भित है, इसलिए उसके बाद भाषा में परिवर्तन होना कम हो गया है। यही कारण है कि समाज से भाषा दूर हो गया, ये भी एक कारण। तो व्याकरण से भाषा को नहीं बांधेंगे। संस्कृत व्याकरण ऐसा बना हुआ है कि लोक में जो प्रयोग है उसी को देख करके व्याकरण बनाया गया।
धन्यवाद। कुल मिला के तात्पर्य यह था मेरा, what I wanted to convey was that there are so many phenomena happening in our own Indian languages, including many words also, that you will be able to understand only after you have some deeper understanding of Sanskrit. That was the point that I was trying to drive home. And another thing is, this Hindi language that we speak right now, if you look at the trajectory, it has of course come from Sanskrit and then Shauraseni and then Khadi Boli and then Hindustani. And from Hindustani, there was a book written in around 1956. It is called as Basic Principles of Modern Standard Hindi. So the Hindi that we speak today is in accordance with that Basic Principles of Modern Standard Hindi, which was laid down in 1956. And then Hindi, of course, became our official language of our Indian Union. And these things are there in Wikipedia, you can check. The makers of our constitution and the visionaries had it in their mind that by 1965, and another 15-20 years, they will make sure that there are two official languages in those days, Hindi and English still remains as an official language of Indian Union. But they were thinking of completely shifting to Hindi in another 15 years. So that was their plan, which did not succeed for some reasons. So ये सारा इतिहास है और इसमें ये स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन की प्रक्रिया हुई है जिसको मानक भाषा करके इसको कहा गया है। तो भारतीय संविधान का जो आर्टिकल 351 है उसको देखेंगे तो उसमें ऐसे लिखा है कि ये हिंदी का भी जहां जहां पोषण करना है, जहां जहां, क्योंकि क्या है कि भाषाओं को अपडेट होना पड़ता है, जैसे जैसे नई नई बातें आती है, नए नए संदर्भ आते हैं, वैसे वैसे भाषाओं को भी आगे बढ़ना पड़ता है, नए शब्दों को कैप्चर करना पड़ता है। अभी परिस्थिति ऐसी है कि जैसे कि एक शब्द हो गया और मुझे मातृभाषी लोग बताएं कि हैंडल को क्या कहते हैं अंग्रेजी में। हैंडल को, हैंडल होता है ना कार में, उसको क्या कहते हैं? हत्था। हाँ, तो ऐसे कुछ कुछ शब्द हैं वो तुरंत अब याद भी नहीं आते, है ना, वो जा रहे हैं धीरे धीरे और हमको तो आगे लेके जाने की बात है भारतीय भाषा को। तो उसके विषय में ये कहा गया, स्टेशन हो गया, तो स्थानक शब्द है, लेकिन वो क्या पता कितने लोगों को पता होगा। कुल मिलाकर क्या हो रहा है कि वो भी हिंदी में एसिमुलेट हो चुका है अभी स्टेशन शब्द, उसमें कोई समस्या नहीं है, लेकिन इसी की जगह थोड़े से ज्यादा हिंदी निष्ठ शब्दों को हम ला सकते हैं। तो इसीलिए वो संविधान में बहुत स्पष्ट लिखा हुआ है कि आप जहां जहां चाहें वहां आप संस्कृत से शब्दों को उठा लें, जहां जहां चाहे वहां आसपास की भारतीय भाषाओं में से शब्दों को, क्योंकि हिंदी भी बनी उसी में से, आपकी जो अवधी है या मैथिली है या जहां आसपास की वहां की उत्तर भारत की जो भाषाएं हैं उन्हीं से वो परिपुष्ट होती रहती है। तो या तो आप आसपास की प्रादेशिक भाषाओं में से उठाएं शब्दों को, या तो आप संस्कृत में से उठाएं, से सीधे लिखा है। तो इस तरह से संस्कृत जो है वो पोषण कर सकती है। अब ये संस्कृत है क्या, इसके विषय में कुछ विद्वानों ने अपने मत रख ही दिए हैं, लेकिन फिर भी मैं थोड़ा सा बताना चाहूंगा कि अगर हम पूरा प्रवाह देखें तो वेद में आप लोग स्वयं ही देखिए, एक वैदिक हेरिटेज नाम की वेबसाइट है IGNCA की, तो उसमें वागाम्भृणी सूक्त आता है दशम मंडल में ऋग्वेद के। तो वहां वाक ऐसे शब्द का इस्तेमाल हुआ है, वाक का पूरा सूक्त है वहां पे। तो वाक को जो है, वाक को दैवी वाक माना गया है, वो एक दिव्य वस्तु है ऐसे माना गया है ना, कुछ अलौकिक है ऐसे माना गया है। और जैसे पक्षी है, तो पक्षी उड़ सकते हैं, क्यों उड़ सकते हैं? क्योंकि उनके पास एक अलग एक टैंजिबल चीज है जो हमारे पास नहीं है, वो उड़ सकते हैं, हम नहीं उड़ सकते। सिमिलरली there is this special faculty, this special ability that we human beings have got. It is not that the other living beings do not communicate. They do communicate, but their languages are not so complex. They do communicate, but they do not have libraries. They do communicate, but they do not have newspapers. So हमारे पास वो एक ऐसी क्षमता है कि जिसके कारण वो ऐसे ऐसे टेंजिबल नहीं है, लेकिन वो यहाँ कहीं है कि जिसके कारण हम लोग अपने बहुत सूक्ष्म भावों को भी प्रकट कर सकते हैं भाषा के, विद द हेल्प ऑफ लैंग्वेज वी आर एबल टू डू दैट। तो इसीलिए वाणी को दैवी माना गया है। उसमें कई सारे वेदों में आपको सूक्त मिलेंगे, चत्वारि शृंगा त्रयोस्य पादा, ये भी ऋग्वेद में है और उसकी व्याख्या भी बाद में पतंजलि ने की है। तो ऋग्वेद में आपको वो मेरे ख्याल से दशम मंडल के 5वें सूक्त में है, चत्वारि शृंगा त्रयोस्य पादा। तो भाषा जो हम बोलते हैं, हमारे वेदों का ये मानना है कि वो तो केवल वैखरी है, मतलब यहां से सुनाई देने वाली भाषा, लेकिन इससे कुछ ज्यादा भी स्वरूप है भाषा का, है ना। एट मेनी टाइम्स वी कम्युनिकेट, वी आर डिस्कसिंग थिंग्स विद आवर ओन सेल्व्स, देयर आल्सो द लैंग्वेज इज देयर, इट इज नॉट ऑडिबल टू अदर्स बट इट इज देयर। अच्छा, वो भी जो आ रहा है वो कहां से आ रहा है? वो जो अंदर अंदर होने वाला जो संवाद है वो आ रहा है, वो कहां से आ रहा है? तो वो भी एक स्तर है। तो जो आत्मा अंदर होने वाला संवाद है उसको मध्यमा वाणी कहा है, उसके अंदर का भी एक स्तर है जहां शब्दों और अर्थों में कोई भेद नहीं है। उस स्तर को कहा गया है पश्यंती वाक कहा गया है, पश्यंती। और उससे भी एक और ज्यादा ये जो भाषा निकलती है ये कॉन्शियसनेस में से निकलती है, हमारे होने में से निकलती है, तो वो परावाक है, उसी को शब्द ब्रह्म कहा गया। तो शब्द वो नहीं है जो सुनाई देता है, वो जो सुनाई दे रहा है उससे तो केवल भाषा व्यक्त हो रही है। वैसे तो शब्दों अक्षरों से भी व्यक्त होती है, वैसे तो वो देखिए मैंने तो इनको कुछ कहा भी नहीं है, खड़े हो गए, तो इस तरह से भी व्यक्त होती है भाषा, है ना। ये तो केवल व्यक्त हो रहा है, जेस्चर से भी व्यक्त हो जाती है, लेकिन जो है, जो इससे व्यक्त हो रहा है वो भाषा है, ये हमारा। और वो जो है वो नित्य है, इसलिए हमने कहा है कि शब्द नित्य है, शब्द नित्य है। और आप देखिए इस परंपरा में जो केवल जो नित्य तत्व है, हमेशा उन्हीं के बारे में अनुसंधान हुआ है और भाषा के बारे में बहुत गहरा अनुसंधान हुआ है। दिस इज वन ट्रेडिशन, we heard about Arthashastra and other things, but few traditions have somewhere vanished in course of time. But this is one tradition which survives. Even today there are grammarians who are spending a huge part of their time doing Vyakarana. Okay. Now, what I was telling you is, we all know about Bhasha, we all know about Vak. As I told you, Vak is something divine. It has come to, that is the idea of our own Indian tradition. And then they do not look at, उनको केवल यही पता है कि भाषा एक चीज है, भाषा। आपको आश्चर्य होगा, आप सभी ने पाणिनि के बारे में सुना है, आज मुझे उनको इंट्रोड्यूस करना था, मैडम करेंगे, मैं थोड़ा सा बोलूंगा और दिन भर आप सुनने वाले हैं उनके बारे में। तो आपको आश्चर्य होगा कि पाणिनि ने संस्कृत का व्याकरण लिखा है, तो हम सब जानते हैं, लेकिन पाणिनि ने इस संस्कृत शब्द को भाषा, किसी एक भाषा के वाचक शब्द की तरह पूरे अपने व्याकरण में कहीं प्रयुक्त नहीं किया कि मैं संस्कृत का व्याकरण लिख रहा हूं, ऐसा उन्होंने कहीं कहा ही नहीं। कहीं नहीं कहा। तो ये क्या है फिर, किसका व्याकरण हो रहा है? छठवीं शताब्दी में अमरकोश नाम का एक ग्रंथ आया जो पद्यमय डिक्शनरी है, डिक्शनरी इन फॉर्म ऑफ वर्सेस, यू कैन लुक फॉर इट, इट इज देयर। तो उस पद्यमय कोश में ब्राह्मी तु भारती भाषा गीर वाक वाणी सरस्वती, ये उसके सिनोनिम्स बताए। ब्राह्मी, भारती भाषा, सरस्वती, गी, वाक, वाणी, इसमें संस्कृत कहीं नहीं आया। तो ये जो व्याकरण है वो भाषा का व्याकरण है। भाषा क्या है? तो देखिए, हम लोग कहते हैं कि इस प्रांत में मराठी भाषा बोली जाती है, इस प्रांत में हिंदी गुजराती भाषा बोली जाती है। हम जानते हैं कि जब भारत स्वतंत्र हुआ तो जो राज्यों का विभाजन हुआ वो लिंग्विस्टिक्स ग्राउंड्स पे हुआ, वो भाषा के ग्राउंड्स पे हुआ। तो ये तो सत्य है, किंतु आप जब किसी भाषा को नाम देने जाते हैं तब आपको पता चलता है कि ये बड़ा फिसलन वाला मामला है ना। जैसे कि गुजराती, तो गुजराती आप किसको कहेंगे? वो जो महसाणा में बोली जाती है वो थोड़ी सी अलग है, वो जो अहमदाबाद में बोली जाती है वो भी थोड़ी सी अलग है, वो भावनगर में बोली जाने वाली थोड़ी अलग है, और बॉर्डर एरिया में आप चले जाएंगे जहां महाराष्ट्र नजदीक आ जाता है तो वहां की भाषा तो ऐसी है कि जो अच्छा नेटिव गुजराती स्पीकर समझ भी नहीं पाता। हाँ, उसमें कुछ गुजराती शब्द जरूर है, उसको हम मराठी भी नहीं कह सकते। तो एक तरह से देखा जाए तो मतलब जो हमारा परिप्रेक्ष्य ऐसा है कि एक ही देयर इज वन सिंगल मास विच इज भाषा, एंड दीज आर ऑल डिफरेंट वेरिएशंस, वेरिएंट्स ऑफ दैट भाषा। आप देखेंगे तो एक इसकी दृष्टि से भी देख सकते हैं और दूसरा साम्य की दृष्टि से भी देख सकते हैं। मतलब बांग्ला में ऐसे कई शब्द है जो हिंदी में भी है, संस्कृत में भी है, गुजराती में भी है ना, वो पश्चिम में है या पूर्व में। तो हम जो देख रहे हैं भाषा को, जो भारतीय परिप्रेक्ष्य है वो ये है कि भाषा एक ही सिंगल कुछ है जिसके बहुत सारे वेराइटीज है, बहुत सारे वेरिएंट्स है। अब भाषा हैज स्पेशियल डाइवर्सिटी, जैसे जैसे आप एक जगह से दूसरे जगह जाएंगे भाषा बदलती जाएगी और वो ग्रेजुअली बदलती है। आप प्रवास करिए, पैदल चलिए तो आपको पता चलेगा। ऐसे नहीं है कि सडनली यहाँ के आदमी को वो भाषा पता ही नहीं, दूसरी पता है। तो ये सब जो है वो स्पेशल वेरिएंट्स ऑफ दिस वन मास विच इज कॉल्ड एज भाषा। सिमिलरली जैसे मैडम बता रही थी कि जैसे समय बदलता है वैसे भाषा बदल जाती है। तो आज जिसका हम बहुत गर्व कर रहे हैं हमारी हिंदी भाषा, पता नहीं 400 साल के बाद वो रहेगी कि नहीं, उसकी कुछ कुछ अलग वेरिएंट्स आ चुके होंगे, कुछ और लोग बोलते होंगे, और ये जो अभी हम भाषा बोल रहे हैं इसको वो समझने में भी सक्षम नहीं होंगे। अनदर इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज, जैसे मैं आपको परा पश्यंती वगैरह बता रहा था, तो यू कैनॉट सी, जैसे कि पानी है, उसको आप किसी पात्र के बिना, वैसे आपको मैं कहूं कि पानी लाओ तो आप मुझे बोतल देंगे या ग्लास देंगे, है ना। आप ऐसे कैसे केवल पानी नहीं दे सकते। मैं कहूं मोबाइल लाओ तो आप मोबाइल दे सकते हैं मुझे, पुस्तक दे सकते, पानी नहीं दे सकते, उसको कोई वेसल चाहिए। वैसे ही ज्ञान जो है वो ऐसे ही हवा में नहीं रह सकता। भाषा जो है वो ज्ञान का पात्र है, इट कैनॉट सर्व, इट कैनॉट स्टे। सो लैंग्वेज इज दैट इन विच नॉलेज क्रिएट्स इटसेल्फ, है ना। हम नॉलेज कंसीव भी नहीं कर सकते भाषा के बिना, है ना। स्वप्न की भी एक भाषा होती, लेकिन भाषा के बिना ज्ञान नहीं रह सकता। तो भाषा और ज्ञान का इतना जुड़ाव है, जो जो ज्ञान क्रिएट होगा वो भाषा के बिना हो नहीं सकता। इसीलिए पूरे इंजीनियर्स को लगाया है, लैंग्वेज इंजीनियर्स को, कि करो इस पे काम, और पीढ़ी दर पीढ़ी हम लोग वो काम करते आ रहे हैं। So I am also a part of that living tradition which started with I don't know whom, and it is a live tradition. It is still going on. So what they have done is they have seen that there are so many variants. भाषा बदल रही है, भाषा के बिना ज्ञान को रखा नहीं जा सकता। समझो हम ज्ञान को किसी एक भाषा, किसी एक वेरिएंट में रखते हैं तो वहां के लोग उसको समझ नहीं पाएंगे। 400 साल के बाद ये हुआ ही है। बाद में देखिए ज्ञानेश्वरी है, आज वो नेटिव मराठी स्पीकर को तुरंत समझ में नहीं आती। तो क्या करें? तो इन्होंने इस पे काम चालू किया। दे टुक वन वेरिएंट ऑफ वट एवर भाषा दे न्यू, दे टुक वन वेरिएंट ऑफ इट, विच एवर वेरिएंट द ग्रामेरियन वॉज एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड नाइसली एंड विच वॉज क्लोज टू द लैंग्वेज ऑफ वेदस, ओके, एंड दे स्टार्टेड मेकिंग अ ग्रामर ऑफ इट। अब 2 मिनट में मैं आपको ये बताऊंगा कि ग्रामर क्या है। हमारी जो संकल्पना है ग्रामर, इसको हम व्याकरण कहते हैं। इट इज नॉट एग्जैक्टली सेम एज ग्रामर, थोड़ा सा फर्क है, वो बता के मैं अपनी भाषा बात को खत्म करूंगा, मैडम कंटिन्यू करेंगे, बाकी का आप सुनेंगे ही। तो उन्होंने क्या किया कि मतलब ग्रामर क्या होता है, तो ट्रेडिशनली ग्रामर ये होता है जो आपको, जो लर्नर्स होते हैं, समझो मैं बांग्ला सीखना चाहता हूं तो बांग्ला के जो लर्नर्स हैं उनको शुद्ध और स्पष्टता से कैसे अपने आप को अभिव्यक्त करना है, बोलकर अभिव्यक्त करना है, लिखकर अभिव्यक्त करना है, इसका मार्गदर्शन ग्रामर करता है, व्याकरण करता है, ठीक है। लेकिन पाणिनि का व्याकरण कोई ऐसा व्याकरण नहीं। पाणिनि आपको कुछ सिखाना नहीं चाह रहे। वो क्या कर रहे हैं, वो उस एक वेरिएंट का एक इतना डिटेल्ड डिस्क्रिप्शन दे रहे हैं, इतना डिटेल्ड कि जितना डिटेल्ड डिस्क्रिप्शन और किसी भाषा का अब तक प्रायः हुआ नहीं है, इतना डिटेल्ड डिस्क्रिप्शन वो दे रहे हैं, ठीक है। ये काम वो कर रहे हैं अपने व्याकरण। तो हिज जॉब इज जस्ट टू डिस्क्राइब दैट वन वेरिएंट एंड अनदर फ्यू रूल्स ही आल्सो टेल्स कि ये जो मेरा वेरिएंट है उससे वैदिक वेरिएंट कैसे अलग है। वेद में आपको और क्या क्या नई बातें वैदिक भाषा में दिखेंगी। भाषा को आप देख सकते हैं कि संस्कृत जिसको हम कह रहे हैं अभी और वैदिक भाषा, उसमें थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस है, वो उसके भी उन्होंने कुछ रूल्स दिए। इतना काम उन्होंने किया है अपने व्याकरण, ठीक है। तो दिस इज जस्ट अ डिटेल्ड डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ दैट लैंग्वेज। हाउ डज दैट हेल्प? तो दिस हेल्प्स लाइक दिस। ये व्याकरण बन गया, ये तैयार हो गया, इसके बाद इससे पहले भी भाषा बदल रही थी, इसके बाद भी बदलने वाली है, यहां भी बदलने वाली है, वहां भी बदलने वाली है, और कहीं जाएगी तो भी बदलने वाली है, ठीक है। ये तो होगा ही। तो इन्होंने क्या किया कि भाषा को आप ऐसे स्पेस और टाइम में से देख सकते हैं, वैसे ऐसे चेंजिंग फिनोमेना। तो उन्होंने एक पॉइंट लिया एंड ही प्रिपेयर्ड अ स्नैपशॉट ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर स्टेट ऑफ दैट लैंग्वेज इन दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम and he has given all the rules. Language has changed afterwards, no doubt, but you have the rules with you which can recreate that language at any point of time. समझ में आ रहा है? वो क्या वेरिएंट था हमको नहीं पता, लेकिन हमारे पास रूल्स है, क्योंकि भाषा तो बदलनी ही बदलनी। आप अभी जो बोल रहे हैं आपके पोते नहीं बोलेंगे, वो निश्चित है, लेकिन हमारे पास एक ऐसा रूल्स का सेट है कि जो भी किसी भी समय लगभग 70, 80, 90% उस भाषा का चित्र आपके सामने ला। तो ये व्याकरण जो है वो लक्ष्य और लक्षण का व्याकरण है। उन्होंने लक्ष्य को देखा जैसी वो भाषा बोली जा रही थी, और लक्षण लिखे, नियम लिखे, और अब ये नियमों में इतनी ताकत है कि वो किसी भी समय आपको लक्ष्य को प्रोजेक्ट करके देंगे। अब क्या हुआ इसके कारण कि वेदास आर स्टिल इंटरप्रिटेबल बाय यू टुडे, रामायण इज स्टिल इंटरप्रिटेबल बिकॉज ऑफ दैट स्नैपशॉट दैट यू हैव। सेकेंडली, उन्होंने अपने बाद वाले राइटर्स को एक ऑफर किया कि देखो ये एक भाषा है, इफ यू राइट समथिंग इन दिस इट विल बी टाइमलेस, इफ यू राइट समथिंग इन दिस इट विल बी इंटरप्रिटेबल।
Namaste. Thank you, Deepesh ji, for a very interesting and engaging talk. So I'll start from where Deepesh ji has left. So the title of my talk is Cognitive Aspects Embedded in the Vakyapadiya, the Ancient and Modern Meet. So my background is Sanskrit literature. So I'm going specifically Sanskrit grammar, and Vakyapadiya is the text in Sanskrit grammatical tradition. So I'm going to talk about the text Vakyapadiya, and since this is the faculty development program in Indian knowledge traditions with reference to science and technology, I'm also going to talk about cognitive science. Now it is very difficult not to read Bhartrhari in cognitive science or vice versa, but rather than claiming that Vakyapadiya is the treatise on cognitive science or Bhartrhari was the first and foremost cognitive scientist, I would rather pinpoint some of the theories on language that Bhartrhari has given with that of the some of the hypotheses that are currently researched upon in the field of cognitive science. And the point is not to have that feel-good experience or the psychological satisfaction that Bhartrhari has everything, but rather than that, the emphasis is on the need of the multidisciplinary research. So usually when we have learned Vakyapadiya, we have either learned it from the linguistic point of view or later on in some advanced stage philosophical point of view. But if you remove cognitive aspect from it, it would be like that famous parable of 8 blind men and the elephant. So you explore only one part of it. So if you combine everything, I think that it will give us more better idea into Vakyapadiya. So a little bit introduction about the text. So Vakyapadiya is the fourth surviving text in the Paninian grammatical tradition after Panini's Ashtadhyayi, Katyayana's Vartikas on it, Patanjali's Mahabhashya or the great commentary on it, and now we have Vakyapadiya written by Bhartrhari, who was a 5th century Indian grammarian, philosopher and poet. Apart from Vakyapadiya, he has written a commentary on Mahabhashya called Mahabhashya Deepika, and he has written 3 texts called Niti Shataka, Shrungara Shataka and Vairagya Shataka, collectively known as 3 Shatakas. Now the name Vakyapadiya suggests that it is about Vakya and Pada. Vakya is a sentence and Pada is a word, and these two form the 2nd and 3rd chapter of Vakyapadiya. Second is Vakya Kanda or the chapter on the Vakya, and third is Pada Kanda or the chapter on the Pada. And the first one is Brahma Kanda, where Bhartrhari has equated speech with that of the Brahman. Shabda Brahman, the supreme speech principle. Now commentaries that we have is Bhartrhari's own commentary known as Svopadnya Tika. Apart from that we have Harivrishabha's Vritti, Punya Raja's Tika and Hela Raja's commentary and Vrishabhadeva's Paddhati. And the subject matter is philosophy of language. So what is philosophy of language? Basically he discusses the processes, how we produce language, how people understand language, and where does the meaning lie? Is it in my mind? Is it in your mind? Or does it lie in the world? What is the relation between my language with my thought, with the reality that it is expressing, and all those things? So what happened is the text before Vakyapadiya, the focus of those texts was on word, derivation of correct words, usage of correct words, etc. With Bhartrhari's Vakyapadiya, the whole focus on the word shifted to the meaning. So Bhartrhari is also known as semanticist. Semantics is related to meaning. So semanticist more than the actual philosopher that he was, and it is known as the bedrock of semantics in Sanskrit grammatical tradition. Now in today's talk I am discussing about 3 concepts given by Bhartrhari. First is the Sphota theory, second is the notion of Pratibha, and third is 3 stages of speech that Dipesh sir almost has covered. So all these lie in one and the same topic, that is language, reality and thought, which gives us the answers that how I perceive reality, how it gets converted into my thought, and while it is coming out of my mouth, how I am expressing it via language. Now for the sake of presentation, I have divided this in 3 topics, but otherwise they are very interlinked. So the theory of Sphota. So the word Sphota means blast. Sphot hona, blast. Here the burst of meaning or the manifestation of meaning. So according to Bhartrhari, so there are 2 aspects in the Sphota theory. The first one is Akhanda Paksha. So according to Bhartrhari, sentences do not have any words, and words do not have any phonemes or letters or syllables. So in language, sentence is a single, whole, complete, meaningful unit. The minimal meaningful unit in language is a sentence. And since sentence does not have any words, sentence meaning also does not have any word meaning. So sentence meaning is not the combination of word meanings. So what does Bhartrhari mean by this is that, so Bhartrhari is not talking about the sentence that I am speaking and the sentence you are listening to. He is talking about the sentence that I have in my mind before I spoke and the sentence that you have in your mind after you listen to. So that he says as Vakya, which gives us the linguistic idea how can be Vakya partless or indivisible, but it is the meaning representation that I have in my mind. The concept or the thought or the idea or the intention or the message that I have, that is Vakya. And since it is indivisible, it is later known as, from the Punya Raja's commentary, as Akhanda Paksha, the view that believes in the indivisibility of a sentence. Now, while I am talking in words, while you are listening word by word. So how is that possible? So Bhartrhari says that the Antaha Sphotaha, the inner Sphota, the meaning principle, is expressed by the outer words. The words that have acoustic features, the words which have krama, sequence in them, words which have akanksha or the mutual expectancy of each other. So this is akramaha, ekaha, akhandaha, and nirakangshaha, sarvataha nirakangshaha. That is expressed by the outer words, and the relation between these two is vyangya, revealed, and vyanjaka, revealer, or expressed, manifested, and the expressors. That is the relation between antaha and bahi spota. That is very brief idea about this spota theory. Now we have a great Sanskrit scholar called, his name is Kunjuni Raja, and in his text Indian Theories of Meaning, he has equated this Akhanda Paksha with that of the Gestalt psychology. Gestalt is a German term pronounced Gestalt, which means whole or picture. And according to Gestalt psychology, they believe that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, which means it is human psychology to perceive something in whole. A complete pattern, a complete configuration is perceived and not parts are perceived in it. And they give the analogy of cognition of picture. When I'm looking at some painting, at first instance, I'm perceiving that painting as a whole. When my mind dwells on it for the analysis purpose, buddhir yatrava tishthate, in Bhartrhari's words, then I see there is a blue stroke, there is an upward stroke, there is a shadow, etc. But before that, we get the cognition of the whole picture in our mind. And Bhartrhari has, in 2-3 verses, in first and second chapter, has given the same analogy of picture. चित्रस्यैक स्वरूपस्य यथा भेद निदर्शनैः नीलादिभिः समाख्यानं क्रियते भिन्न दर्शनैः, and तथैवैकस्य वाक्यस्य we understand it with the help of parts. So there are words, Panini and everybody has spent so much time to in the derivation of words, that is on the analysis level. But in our understanding, it is one and single whole entity. Now Gestalt psychology, the idea was given first by the Austrian and German psychologist based on the Wilhelm Wundt's basic principle of psychology. And for example, the first image here, which is basically, we perceive it as a square, but basically there are 16 different dots. Here also we perceive as a square, but it is actually quarter part taken out from the 4 circles. So what human perception is that to understand everything in whole. This is known as phenomenology. That is, more importance is given to the subjective experience than the objective reality. Objective reality can be something else, but the collective subjective experience can be a little bit different than that. Now second, the recent psycholinguist, we have Jean Aitchison in her book The Articulate Mammal. She has equated the indivisibility of the sentence, also known as monism or holism or sententialism or semantic holism, with that of the Turkish carpet. So Turkish carpet is again an intricate artwork of several threads of different shades, etc., which gives us the single cognition. Later on in the same book, she found the resemblance with the orchestra playing a symphony, where there are several musical instruments, but they give us the single experience. Now the second aspect of spota that we have seen is antaha spotaha and bahihi pada, the outer words. So the spota is latent. We have seen the relation of this antaha with that of the bahihi is of that of the revealed and the revealer. Long back in 1916, we have a Swiss linguist, Ferdinand de Saussure, and in his article, he has given the same dichotomy of language, the internal system of language, which he calls as Lang, and the external or the outer use of language he calls as parole. And later on in theoretical linguistics, Noam Chomsky in 1965 also gives the same dichotomy of language. The internal system is the deep structure and the external is surface structure. And he also uses the same words signified and signifier. Now why I am presenting this is, the Gestalt psychology has brought the revolution, not just in field of psychology, but also in theories of memory, the studies on the mind, and currently it is being used in quantum mechanics and robotics also, and neurology, etc. And the Chomskyan idea of deep structure and surface structure has given the revolutionary a concept of transformative generative grammar, which is still anchoring various ideas in theoretical linguistics, psycholinguistics, and neurolinguistics, and which is giving us answers why we understand active sentences faster than the passive sentences, why we understand affirmative sentences better than the negative sentences, and passive negative sentences are even much more harder to process, because those many transformations are involved in my mind before I speak, and those many transformations are involved in your mind when you are processing it. Transformative generative grammar. In psycholinguistics, this indivisibility of a sentence is used in language teaching. So some researchers have come up with the idea that rather than teaching children the script by means of separate syllables like A, B, C, D, E, and then CAT, cat, HAT, hat, etc., why not we teach whole sentences to them? So they started showing complete sentences with the equivalent event to small 1-year-old children. For example, rabbit is running, rabbit is sitting, rabbit is eating. And the 1-year-old child could learn what is rabbit in it and how it is expressed. RABBIT, the constant element in 3 events is rabbit, and sitting is this, eating is this, running is this. Later on, cat, hat, rat, and he sees CAT, cat, the label is attached to the toy cat, etc. Then he found out that CHA are different minimal pairs in this language, and mom or someone pronounces it as k, h, and r. So that is indivisibility of sentence, and they have found out that children learn script of their language much better. In 2016, Japanese Kana language has been researched by the same method, and it is the logographic language. It is not the phonetic language like English. So they found that children learn twice faster by this method. Usually Japanese and Chinese, it takes 10-12 years for children to learn their logographic language, and by this method, whole language strategy, or the Akhanda Paksha, the indivisibility method, they have learned twice faster. So if we bring the Spoda theory out of its box of language and philosophy, and we add the cognitive element plus some practicability, we won't find it any more mysterious entity as A.B. Keith would say, or somewhat mystical conception as S.K. Day would describe it. The second point I am taking is the notion of pratibha. So pratibha, Bhartrhari introduces the notion of pratibha to explain how do we understand indivisible sentences. Because I am listening word by word, phoneme by phoneme. He says that there is a flash of insight in our mind. Pratibha is translated as flash of intuition, sudden realization. In German, eine Zusammenfassung vom Wörtern im Bewusstsein, the coming together of the words in the intellect. So it is the spontaneous and sudden realization. It is a reliable kind of knowledge. That is how Bhartrhari describes it. It's a preliminary level introduction of pratibha. Now I found this, and pratibha is the innate ability of a man, like Dr. Deepesh has expressed. People have this innate ability to understand sentence as a whole. Now we have the innateness hypothesis also given by Noam Chomsky in modern linguistics, and he gives innateness hypothesis to describe how children learn language. Bhartrhari is talking about how people comprehend language. That is a little bit contrast in there, but the idea of innateness is same. Chomsky says that children have this innate grammar, innate statistical device to understand their native language. They are not taught by external instructions. Nobody taught them this is the subject, you put it in the first place, this is the verb, you put it in the second place. They have this innate ability to learn their native language. Now Chomsky is giving this as a response to B.F. Skinner's behaviorism. B.F. Skinner was a behaviorist psychologist who said that human behavior is a response to the external stimuli. Speech is a response to the external people and the environment that child is getting. Chomsky is saying that that does not happen. If you bring a same primate with the same environment, they won't learn language as children do. So it is the innate ability that we have which enables the child to learn language. Now Bhartrhari is saying that Pratibha is also found in animals. So he says that Swaravrittim vikarutte madhau pums kokilasya kaha jantvadayah kulayadikarane kena shikshitaha. So who teaches a cuckoo to sing? Who teaches a bird to build its nest? Chomsky also gives the example of who teaches a spider spin its web. They have that inherent quality, but there is little bit difference in both ideas. Bhartrhari's Pratibha transcends human being. It is the instinctive urge, innate abilities of animals also, where we go far from Noam Chomsky and closer to cognitive linguistics. Chomsky belongs to theoretical formal approaches of linguistics. Cognitive linguistics disregards Chomsky's innateness hypothesis. In one sense, they say that language does not come from some special encapsulated module. It comes from the general cognition. Like we have general mechanisms by which a child can navigate its environment, child can start crawling and etc. Language also developed from the same cognitive environment. We do not have a special cognitive ability. Rather, it is fueled by the non-linguistic competence mechanisms. So here we go little closer. It is known as cognitive commitment hypothesis. So how do children learn language or comprehend language? For that, they give embodiment hypothesis, like how our body has developed, how our vocal organs have developed. It goes to the anthropology and evolution. If we have the same primate with the same body and the same vocal organs and the same brain development, they might also be able to use language like we do. Now, Chomsky's idea of innateness is the rationalist view, who believes that by birth we have some Kantian categories given by Immanuel Kant, which goes before that René Descartes, 17th century French philosopher and mathematician, who say that some categories like space, time and cause are not learned by the environment, but they are innate in us. They are innate in us. Now, cognitive linguistics says that mind is a blank slate. A Latin phrase is tabula rasa. Mind is a blank slate. Whatever we learn, we understand it from the environment. And bhavananugatena agamadva is Bhartrhari's and 4 more categories by which we have Pratibha, either by abhyasa or by experience or by some unknown causes. So there is something we haven't found the reach of cognitive science yet, where Bhartrhari says that adrushtopapadita, like adrushta reasons are there how we acquire pratibha. So basically, knowledge is gained by our experiences. Now somewhere else, Bhartrhari is saying that pratibha as sentence meaning itself. Vakyarthamiti tamahuhu. So when you take pratibha as the sentence meaning, you have to understand it not as the sentence meaning like we can show it on the paper. It is the sentence meaning in the mind, the meaning representation. Now here we find the resemblance with Ogden and Richards' semiotic triangle. So in semiotic triangle, we have 3 angles. At one angle, we have the symbol or the word, for example, suppose M-A-N-G-O, mango. On the other angle, we have its referent in the object, the actual mango in the object, which has some objective reality. And at the third angle, we have its meaning representation, the mango that I understand and that you understand. That is abstract. That is on the subtle, on the subtler level. That meaning representation, that upward angle is pratibha. So words are produced, sentence is produced, and it is talking about some objective reality in the world, and the upward angle, what you understand, what I understand in our mental matrix, that is pratibha. Later on, Bhartrhari talks about pratibha as idam taditi anakhyeya. No one can say that it is that. Pratyatma vritti siddha or swasamvedana siddha. So it can be experienced. It is the intuition where no brain image techniques have gone yet, because brain basically is a physical thing. You can dissect it. You can show it. You can show that mango is processed somewhere here in the left superior frontal temporal lobe, and the verbs are processed somewhere back here. But if you dissect it, if you are a neurologist or neuroscientist, if you dissect it, you will find just neurons firing here and there. You cannot find a pattern that relates to mango. It is not like the shape of mango. It is like none of it. Like if you find it, then there would be no AI. That is something swasamvedana siddha. Like सा कर्त्रापि न निरूप्यते. प्रत्यात्म वृत्ति सिद्धा सा कर्त्रापि न निरूप्यते. Like the comprehender himself cannot tell that yes, this is my pratibha. It is experienced, it is intuition. There, that is the unique contribution of Bhartrhari. Now, the research on cognitive science and cognitive linguistics is much used in today's date in robotics, machine learning, and AI, etc. So, if we find some ideas in Sanskrit theories that we can use in this, that would be more beneficial. So, third point I have is 3 stages of speech. So, Dipesh sir has covered it a lot. So, 3 stages of Bhartrhari are Vaikhari, Madhyama, and Pashyanti. Vaikhari is the outer speech that I can speak and you can hear. Here, the breath or the prana has the connection with the vocal organs known as karana. Before that, I have intention to speak. I have some concept and some message to tell. That is non-linguistic phenomena. That is Madhyama. And there, it is said that prana has connection with buddhi, intellect. So it is a mental language. Language in the sense that mental concept. And even beyond that, there is Pashyanti, that is again the subject of intuition, like Pratibha or the Sphota. And that is beyond reach, that is more subtle. So for this Madhyama, I found resemblance with pre-verbal message. It is a technical concept given by Wilhelm Levelt in his article, Speaking from Intention to Formulation. From intention to articulation. It is a 1989 article. So he has some 6-7 layers of speech production model, 6-7 layers, which starts from the conceptualization, then comes formulation of the message in my mind, and then articulation with the help of vocal organs. In the first conceptualization step, there is this notion of pre-verbal message where I have the intention to speak, but it is not equated with language yet. In formulation, it got equated with some phonetic encoding, lexical retrieval, or lexical decision, and phonological encoding, etc. Before that, there is a pre-verbal message, before language, some message which is before Vaikhari, and that is Madhyama. And this is later on used to help people with language disorders. So currently there are more than 38 language disorders. So by name they are called language disorders, but the actual problem lies at the level of Madhyama Vak. How? For example, suppose we have an aphasic person. Aphasia is speech disorder, which means people cannot use language. It does not mean that they have bad vocal organs or some disorder in their vocal organ. The problem lies in Madhyama Vak, where they cannot conceptualize. They do not remember words, recall nouns. Some aphasic patients, other aphasia, cannot recall verbs. They cannot recall synonyms. They cannot form grammatical structure or agrammatism, or Wernicke's aphasia, whether meaningfulness is not there but grammaticality is there, etc. So problem is in conceptualization. So it is a conceptualization disorder more than language disorder. Same dyslexia is the reading disorder where, for example, people suppose the small b letter in English is read as d letter. So that is the perception disorder, which means the encoding is incorrect. The reading obviously will incorrect. So if we try to understand language from these levels, perhaps we can identify where the problem lies and we can treat it. Now I'll come to conclusion. I have bigger topic, language, reality, and thought. There are 4 to 5 small points in there. I'll mention only one point. So as Dr. Deepesh sir has explained that there is no cognition which is independent of language. Nasosti pratyayo loke yah shabdanugamadhrute anuviddhamiv jnanam sarvam shabdena bhasate. Everything that is around me is pervaded by language. Is there anything that you have understood but you cannot express in language? But like that cannot be expressed in language. There is no cognition, no conceptualization, no understanding in the world without which is beyond the scope of language. And we have right from Ludwig Wittgenstein till Samuel Beckett, the novelist, everybody is praising, even Shakespeare, what's in the name for which we call rose would smell as sweet, even then. So without language, thought is a vague, uncharted nebula, or language disguises thought, or words are the clothes thoughts wear, etc. are the famous quotes from several texts. So I'll go to Bhartrhari's idea. So I'll start with the point that language is basically a pair of shabda and artha, word and meaning. This is known as symbolic assemblies. So how shabda and artha I'm using, they are coming from some concepts I have in my mind. From where those concepts are coming? From the percepts, the perceptual knowledge I have. Perhaps I have already listened to what I'm saying, I have already read what I'm going to say, etc. Some perceptual knowledge, and that comes from the objective reality. So there is this hierarchy between them. For example, suppose I'm saying that this is the table, so that is the objective reality, that there is the table, and that is the perceptual knowledge. Why I'm saying that this is the table? Because I have the perceptual knowledge, I'm seeing it and I believe my eyes. That is the second stage of perceptual knowledge, where Bhartrhari we find the equivalent like bhavana anugamatva. Bhavana is the perceptual knowledge, translated as perceptual knowledge. From there I find some concepts that this is the table in my mind, then I express it in my words. Table, because I know you know the meaning of table, and I use my knowledge of English language to express it. Now while coming from that objective reality to my language, something got distorts, and that objective reality, when it comes through language, it is known as projected reality. What happens is, so that objective reality is basically, it is there or not there, we don't know. It is our consensus or our aggregate perceptual knowledge that we all can say that there is this table. Now in our mental conception, the meaning representation of that table can be different. How I express it is based on my knowledge. So knowledge not only reflects my cognitive structures, but also it gives rise to that. And Bhartrhari has used several words to explain this projected reality. All this I am saying is from cognitive linguistics, MIT Encyclopedia of Cognitive Linguistics, and we find the similar words to denote projected reality, like vivartate artha bhavena prakriya jagato yataha. What is vivartate? Manifested. It is not there, it manifested in different objects. Yadasminneva tamasi jyotish shuddham vivartate. Again vivartate. Bhasante pratibimbavat. It appears as that. We experience it as that. Prachakshate. Again sarupeva pratiyate. It is appeared as that, and so on. And there are many more things for which we can find the same thought process going on in the ancient philosophy of language and in modern cognitive sciences. We have word sense disambiguation techniques given by Bhartrhari, and we find parallels in natural language processing under the term distributional semantics, which where they use neighborhood frequency and neighborhood density, etc., to disambiguate word senses. And we have language acquisition process, comprehension of incorrect word forms. Like how do we comprehend incorrect word forms? They make us recall the correct word forms, and then we comprehend incorrect word forms, etc. And now I'll make some final remarks that so as teachers, I think that we should give the wide diaspora to our students for conducting interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary researches. And as students, we also have to follow the methods of scrutiny and investigation before accepting anything. And rather than being dogmatic and saying that this is good and this is bad, we should like try to amalgamate both. And Bhartrhari's theories are like well established theories. They are not like research programs like Chomsky himself would call his innateness hypothesis, or it is not even hypothesis of any kind. They are like sufficiently coherent and congruent in themselves, but the modern methods or the experimental validation would add some flavor to their essence. And any scientific inquiry progresses with such collective and holistic efforts. So that is what I wanted to point out, that we should try to bring our ancient theories out of the box of only language and philosophy, and we should use it with adopting modern lenses, so that it will be more effortful for us. Thank you.
I wanted to understand that I have asked this question before also. So when we are constructing a scientific knowledge, we are trying to articulate it. So what happens then? Is it following the same pattern, like you said? Maybe you explained it, but especially when we are talking about two scientists or two academicians talking, how does that is formed? The whole articulation is formed. Also, when two people are talking, and then there is a sense of communicating a specific reality. One, like I am talking to you and establishing a concept called table maybe. So when we are talking about a objective reality that you said, but there is already an understanding that objectivity is created through various subjectivities. We heard it yesterday also. So then how the objectivity is created following this pattern that you both have?
I do not have that much of expertise or experience to answer that question. Even I am still in the reading phase. So as far as I understood, your question is like, if objectivity is the result of our subjective experiences, then how would I know something as it is? It has the, how do you articulate it based on that concepts that you form with your percepts? The earlier perceptual knowledge you have, somewhere long back in the childhood, you have learned the meaning of table and etc. That long-term memory, based on your percepts, you form your concepts. And very interesting concept that our language disposes us to have the worldview. Our language decides how I am going to think. This is known as Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. So Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lee Whorf, a duo of PhD guide and student, both linguist and anthropologist, have said that our language decides how I am seeing the world. For example, in English, I can use a sentence, I broke the vase. But some European languages, Italian, Spanish, they do not use I. It is known as pronoun drop. Pro drop sentences where they say that the vase broke, because there is no intentionality of me to in breaking it. So language, now when imagine both are speaking, the Italian would understand that he purposely broke it, and when he is listening that the vase broke, he would think that he's not taking the responsibility of it. So there is a single event of vase falling from the ground and hitting the ground, but how I express it, it is decided by language. That is known as language or linguistic relativity. The stronger version of this hypothesis says that linguistic determinism, that my language gives me the worldview. For example, the linguistic categories that my language has gives me the access to the cognitive categories. In Sanskrit, we have so many tenses and the moods that other languages do not have. So what we understand by that language, perhaps nobody else would understand it. In some languages, there are no adjectives. In some languages, there are no words like east, west, etc. They have just front and back, and they have to turn around to tell where to go, etc. So the reality, this is Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, and Steven Pinker and later on who wrote the language instinct, etc. They have discarded this view, but these are again hypotheses and they are still in the improvisation progress, but it is both ways, like concepts give rise to language and language also decides how I conceptualize this thing, conceptualize a certain event.
Good morning, ma'am. My question is whether we humans required language for some evolutionary process or what?
Whether we humans require
Required
language?
Does language has any connection with our evolutionary process or not?
The spoken language, yes, because we have certain organs developed
Yeah,
because of
but
which we
animals
can...
also have those organs.
There was one experiment on one chimpanzee known as Nim Chimpsky. It is the ridicule on Noam Chomsky. Some scholar wanted to disregard Chomsky's view, and they have brought up that chimpanzee, 2 weeks old chimpanzee, with their own children, and to teach the chimpanzee the human language. After 3 years, it found out that the child is learning chimpanzee's language and not the other way around. There, what language they have taught is sign language, not the vocal language, because they haven't have that much of developed vocal organs. So evolutionary, our vocal organs are much developed than the other primates. For that only, I think language has that evolutionary connection, but for other things that we have to see. For written language, it is completely the cultural artifact, so it is completely human invention.
One way I know how the Sanskrit is used in mission translation is, if you want to translate, suppose there are 20 languages in India. If you want to translate from one language to another language, and that A language to B language and B language to A language, you need 2 programs. So, and if there are 20 languages, if you want to translate prepare a software from 20 languages, you need a combination of 400 softwares, 20 into 20. So instead of preparing a 400 softwares, you prepare a mission translation from every regional language to Sanskrit and Sanskrit to regional language. So we need only 40 programs are required to do this job. That's why how the NLP project is going on, as understood about a decade ago from KV Ramakrishnaacharya. So it was the one of the use I heard about it.
So they are using these ideas of akanksha, mutual expectancy of the words of each other, then yogyata, semantic compatibility, like the verb eat has the compatibility with the edible items as its object and the animate beings as its subject. I cannot say the lion is eating a table, or I cannot say the table is eating cream, etc. So the yogyata is there, sannidhi principle are there that they use, and there are sangatis, 8 sangatis given in Mimamsa. They are using that for discourse processing, and Panini's grammar is basically the ideas that the sentence meaning starts from the verb. In psycholinguistic, they call that verb is the maypole around which all words revolve. So some ideas are being used, not Sanskrit as a language.
Very nice presentation by both of you. It was one of the best. Thank you. And I have my question to Deepeshji. So Deepeshji, when you were sharing about the Swadharma, so regarding the Swadharma, there is one way that going with the flow and whatever is your strength area, you go with that. And it is a possibility of least resistance and all that. But there is also alternate theory also, that maybe the best thing are not there in that domain. So maybe you create something else other than the Swadharma also, and maybe the new areas can emerge. So is there any Vedantic wisdom or something like where is the free will? Your own thing, but sometimes what happens, you go in that will and then you are falling flat on the ground. So in this way, if there is any wisdom, I would appreciate.
No, there is. Those were general remarks with which I started the thing. So my idea of Swadharma was that, I think you would appreciate the fact that nobody is unbiased. There is nothing like absolute unbiased ideas, absolute unbiased. We talk about Panini, and then later on, in 18th century and all, so there were some. We got introduced to foreign languages, and foreigners came here, and they wanted to communicate with us, so they started writing grammars of our Indian languages, and they said that these are the grammars. This is how the grammar is to be formulated, not the way Panini made it. So then, so these are more linguistically scientific and all. But then ultimately, they were again based on their own ideas, the way the Greek grammar was written and all. So there is nothing unbiased. So if there is bias, my idea was that if there is bias, let it be the bias that is rooted in your own tradition. That was the idea. So it is not about not accepting what is coming from the other sources. Of course, it is not so. That is my understanding.
My question was regarding Sanskrit and other languages. So in Sanskrit, the order of the words doesn't matter, but in other languages, it does matter. Most languages. So how does that comparison?
See, there were 2-3 concluding remarks that I wanted to make, and thank you for drawing me to those remarks, because I had exhausted my time already. One thing that I wanted to drive home was that it was not the so it was not that Panini wrote the grammar of Sanskrit. Rather, what happened was that variant of Bhasha for which grammar was written came to be known as Sanskrit. So it is Sanskrit is coming through grammar. So you understand that thing. And now about the greatness of the language. See, all languages, different languages have different features. So one of these, one feature that this Sanskrit, this variant is having, is that the order of words is comparatively free. You can place any word anywhere, and still it will not lose its meaning. The result is the reason is because these words are, the language is highly inflectional. So instead of saying Ram ne or Ram ka, so in Hindi what happens is Ram is one word, ka is other word. Ka is the postposition that is coming after Rama. So in Sanskrit we have one little inflected form of the word Rama itself. So instead of Rama ka, we say Ramasya. So jo vibhakti marker hai, the case marker is embedded inside that word, and that is why the word order becomes free. So that is a thing that is quite popular about